fun time that we're all having. But I wondered, I was hoping that when we ask you this, you would give some specifics of things that you would do in office. Maybe that's the next question.
Well, I think that the question was actually why you're running, and that's because I'm
why should you be the prosecutor?
Clearly
Yes.
the most qualified.
Okay.
I have the best education by far. Attended the University of Washington and graduated with honors. NYU Law School, number 4 in the country. As opposed to my opponent, that his education is simply unranked. Legal experience, many more years of legal experience and observing how organizations, especially efficient large organizations, work. It's the lack of legal experience, I think, that has led to a deterioration and the mismanagement of the current office, to where we have, and it's a simple, irrefutable fact, and I know my opponent doesn't like to hear it, but we have the longest case delays and lowest conviction rates and the highest dismissal rates in the state. It's easy to improve your trial conviction rate when you dismiss more than every other prosecutor in the state of Washington. That's an easy task. Combine my education experience, especially I'm the only candidate that has any substantive trial experience. My opponent's never handled a felony case, either as a prosecutor or as a defense attorney. I don't believe one trial in your entire career. Is that true, or is it 2?
That would be incorrect.
Okay, well, is it 2 then, or?
I've done many more trials than you, Dave Quesnel. I've done many trials in district court. I've also done many in juvenile court. I've also done one in felony court.
Okay, I believe that would not be borne out.
I believe you've never won a trial in Clickitat County's felony court.
Okay. Again, that's simply a misrepresentation. You're not telling the truth about your experience. That's simple fact.
I think it's documentable. You can go and you can look them up.
Oh, we definitely will. And my experience as a prosecutor included multiple wins in district court. Everyone pled guilty to when I wasn't handling cases in Superior Court, because I actually handled cases in Superior Court. It's the experiences many times. Don't interrupt me, please. The experiences many times yours. You have admitted that you have not been in court. This is the first time you've ever claimed any trial experience at all. You admitted before that you don't have it. So it's quite mind-boggling. And entertaining, in fact. Nonetheless, I have vastly more experience than you do. I'm better trained. And I believe I'm better educated and can handle the job. I've been in the community longer than you have. And I know that we need someone to actually hold people accountable and end the longest case delays and highest dismissal rates in the state of Washington. That's why you don't have the support of law enforcement. That's why even the attorneys in the area don't support it, unless they're under payroll. When defense attorneys and law enforcement's agreeing on the need for change, that's a pretty dramatic statement on the needs of the community not being met, Lord. Don't you agree?
Can I respond now?
Of course.
Okay. You're saying I'm not here and you've been here longer. I believe if you check my residence to this county was in 1998. Far longer than you were here. I think in addition to that, you're saying I've never done trials. I would be happy for you to look up the record. I think your ignorance is astounding. One of, I think, the best trials that we did was in district court. It was rather funny, but with Mark Boardman, and we put on and presented such a strong case that the defense quit halfway through. We have tried, and I have tried many cases in district court with great success.
Well, since you have been in office or prior?
Prior to taking office. And the idea that I'm not involved, it's, I think, quite funny, because in the paper, anything that happens in my office is my fault. And I do take responsibility for them because I am involved in every level of prosecution in my office. You are running for Chief Deputy Prosecuting Attorney, for which you are unqualified and will not get an interview. Kate Matthews and Brian Aaron are exceptional attorneys. They have tried many cases. As far as policy and direction, we roundtable them all. I do interview witnesses. We talk about cases. We discuss direction. We talk about allocation of resources. All of the things that you we need in a strong prosecutor's office. And those attorneys are phenomenal attorneys, and they are well respected, and their opinion carries a great deal. And there's a reason why they have declined to support you. And it's because they frankly are scared because of your temper and issues that you have in controlling yourself in court, that you're not the person that they want to see in their communities that they care about.
And again, misrepresentations and insults and innuendo about temper is simply not appropriate. I know that that was your tactic with Mr. Juris. There's no support for your accusations of any temper issues. You said earlier that somehow I lost my temper in front of some community council or city council members. There's
I'm
no
not sure
support.
you're talking about it. I'm talking about in court,
Your
when you call the
statement.
deputy, or if you refer to him as a douche. Things like that are inappropriate,
that's
and
a
I
lie,
don't
Lori.
believe that's the
You're
way to be
lying.
prosecuted.
Well, let me ask
I don't
this.
think
That's
that
simply
is.
not true.
Let me ask this.
But
Go ahead.
that's an attack on my character that without any merit or support. That is simply not true.
And I believe that it is true. It was in district court. I know the deputy prosecutor that was
When
there.
were you ever in
and I know
court?
the issue that was happening.
When were you
And
ever
you're
in
saying
court?
that I was never in court, and when I first took office,
Then how would
because
you
we
even know
needed
what
to-
occurred?
because we have staff and people that are there.
So,
Very productive.
go ahead. I think it's time maybe to move on to the second question. The question I wanted to ask,
Sure.
which is, or well, I'll start with you first and ask what changes you would make. I mean, obviously, if you, there would be a regime change if you got in. What changes would you make in
Sure.
staffing, et cetera? And I guess to you, what changes would you make now that you're getting traction, I guess, so.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, it's following the law and charging decisions. My opponent conceded that they simply use a standard of probable cause making charging decisions, which is generally considered scintillate evidence sufficient to make an arrest or not to lose your law license. The law is quite clear that the standard is higher for felony charges. So therefore, I think that is an explanation of why we do have the highest dismissal rates in the state, because there are many, many cases in which should not have been charged. Especially when my opponent admits that it's better to charge and dismiss later. That is rendering the presumption of innocence to be meaningless altogether. And it's not following the law. So following the law, I think, is first and foremost. And that goes to the cross spectrum of the office and making sure that everyone, the staff, and the attorneys follow law and their job performance and their personal life. The staff meetings, I've talked to every deputy that's left the office. They say there were no staff meetings that occurred. This is a recent invention of my opponent, I guess in the last month or two, because even at that law community council you referenced, and you say you watched the videotape, your deputies admit that there aren't staffing meetings, and they're incredulous that that would make any difference. It's modern management 101 for organizational efficiency is to have, especially the attorneys, sit down and talk about the cases and the cross training. To lead by example. I believe handling approximately 20% of the especially the felony case, though, is appropriate for the elected in a rural county. There's 4 attorneys in the office, and we have one. To have one that removes herself from the office and spends approximately over 30% of her time traveling outside the county, and therefore is not even available to help if she desired, is not appropriate. That will definitely end on my watch. There's very little reason to be traveling to make political connections with the governor and his allies and the different folks around the state. You need to focus on the county and charging hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a weekly basis for meals and traveling. Needs to stop. It's not appropriate. It's just the hands-on management, actually knowing what's going on in court, and actually handling the civil litigation. You admit that you haven't handled any criminal cases, but it's also true that you don't even handle the civil litigation in court. That you've repeatedly sent deputies with weeks on the experience, weeks on the job experience in the civil court handling serious matters in front of the Superior Court judge representing the county. We need an elected that leads by example, and that's some of the many changes that I plan on instituting to bring about the end of the longest case delays, the highest dismissal rates, and the lowest conviction rates in the state of Washington.
Thank you. And can you respond to that and/or?
Some of it I can't respond to because it's just fairly untrue. 30% gone, not true. If you find the only person that you normally see in the courthouse on the weekends is myself and Lynn Gordon. We're there. I'm there nights. I'm there weekends. I am always on call. State troopers on nights. If there's any issues that arise, I'm always available. When it comes to review and preparing appellates, briefs, I take an active role in that with Ms. Matthews. Everything that happens in that office, I do take an active role. And it's not about hobnobbing with the governor. What it's about is how does what's being passed and the bills that are being passed affect our county. And if there's problems with that, how do we work with those? How can we get more resources for our county? One of the things that we've increased is our fraternities that we handle and the volume that we handle, so there's more funding for that.
Let me ask you, that being cases where deadbeat fathers is what you're talking about?
Correct.
Say fraternity.
Or also just establishing fraternity, things like that. We seek funding for those. We have many grants that we have in the county that pay for parts of our salaries. And there's different things that you have to, meetings that you have to attend and groups that you speak on, so that you know what's happening and what's going on at those meetings.
Could you go on the part where you asked about what changes you would make now?
I apologize.
No, that's okay. We want to cover all the stuff, everybody's satisfied.
So now it's really strengthening the Children's Justice Center, strengthening that partnership so that we have really strong services for our victims of assault and child rapes. We also need to focus on our mental health courts. That's a big area, and it does take a lot of time in understanding what we're doing. We also are facing some serious issues with our wind energy and some appeals for the Board of Tax Appeals that we're preparing and working with that will have some great impacts on the Bickleton area. So there's so many different areas that you're dealing with. But now, because we've handled so many different things, and because I've personally handled quite a few issues, you're able to have a better grasp going into the next administration when I'm elected, and I can now focus on those mental health courts and some of the other things that we just simply didn't have enough time to do. We were having law and justice meetings. That's something that we need to start up again. But when you have only so much time and so many resources, you have a give and take on different things. So it's now that we have some things in order, we have really strong prosecutors that are staying, that are happy with their jobs, and we have the ability to really train and keep those quality in the office so that now we can focus on other things.
I wanted to go back to the issue that seems to be puzzling me, because I don't presume of either of you that there's calculated lying going on. We've heard that word here, but I also can't explain what seems to be such disparate perceptions in some of the things that we've each brought up. So, do you have any explanation for that? And this is for either of you both.
Well, there's multiple examples. It's my understanding that Ms. Hoctor stood before public audiences and said such clearly incorrect things. What, I had Obama stickers on my car? Haven't you said that in multiple meetings?
We were told that you did have a lot of stickers. You also donated to his campaign.
And I also donated to Republican prosecutors in 2010.
Which is fine.
In
My issue is that you don't take
in
responsibility.
2000, I'm supposed to be ashamed of participating in the political process?
No, I think you should be proud of the choices that you make. And
Right.
the community's trying to understand from supporting Obama to claiming to be a liberal to being an independent.
When did I claim to be a liberal?
Or libertarian, I apologize. Where you stand on things and what is your take?
Okay, in 2008, the majority of Cook County supported Obama.
We're not talking about the majority, we're talking about you personally. What do you stand for? What does Dave Canal stand for?
But didn't you just say the community? You act like I have some sort of explanation for taking a majority position in 2008, 6 years ago.
It's nice to go with the crowd, but I'm asking what you stand for.
Okay, and again, the fact that you stand in front of the public and say I had bumper stickers on my car when you absolutely have no idea if it's true or not, and this fact is not true, it doesn't concern you?
No.
No, that
Because many
saying
people have
dishonest
said
things in front
that you
of a
have.
public audience? Okay, so, like we said apparently what was said in the paper before, if someone comes in and makes an accusation, whether you believe it has merit or not, you think it's worthy of further action and referring to Washington State Patrol or simply to repeat rumor and innuendo as fact. You believe that's appropriate
With
as the
you-
elected prosecutor.
With you, I think it's that the truth is hazy, and what you stand for is hazy. And simply when you say things like, I've never tried district court cases, or have any experience doing them, and that's a lie that I say them, I think you can go look them up and find them. There's many things that you say that are not true, and instead of making this campaign about what's positive, which I do, my radios are positive, and the point is, what has my administration done that I care about the county? It's a positive thing. All you seem to be able to do is attack, and get angry and upset, and point out people are being mean to me. And I would like to see more of a leadership from the prosecutor or the person who's trying to become prosecutor. And instead of spending your time calling names and getting mad at people, I would like to see from you concrete things on what you're going to do. And I think the community would like to see that.
And again, it's also to the innuendo. You're the one that stood in front of the Bickleton crowd wanting to know why no one liked you just on this last Tuesday.
I don't think I said that, but again,
it's
if
all
you
on
want
tape.
to say
Right.
things like that, that's fine.
It's on tape. You said your deputies went around asking why people had such a problem with you, and you said
No,
it must be
we
because
did not
people
say
didn't like
people.
you. Okay. Yeah, you said me, which was another falsehood.
It's not people.
sorry.
But again,
Sorry.
you fail to address anything about yourself. You have no stand or personal why you want this. It's simply attacking others. And I know you enjoy attacking me and trying to point out things, but I want to see this about you. What do you want to do? What do you stand for? What does Dave Quesnel stand for? This is your time to talk about what you want, not everyone's mean to me and for me. It's about what do you want to do.
And again, you're misrepresenting the facts. When have I ever pitied myself, to you or to a public audience?
I think that's what you're trying to do in this conversation is
By
people
pointing-
are picking on me and people are mean to me and people showed up and asked me questions. And I think this is the forum where you can tell us what you want to do.
Okay, and again, you're referring and you're making numerous misstatements of fact. And me responding that you are not telling the truth is saying you're being
I don't
mean to
think there's
me?
been any misstatements of fact.
Okay, we've gone through a few already. So, again, if you listen to what I've been saying, is I'm putting forward a vision of a better qualified and better attorney to represent the county and to bring a stop to the mismanagement of the current office that has led to the longest case delays and the lowest conviction rates in the state. That's why law enforcement supports me for it. I mean, why don't they support you?
And I would say that you're not bringing that to the county. I think frankly you scare me when you say things like you would prosecute Rosa Parks and all of the things, and you don't believe that the prosecutor has any discretion. As a member of this community and my family who is in this community, we don't want a prosecutor like you. We believe in discretion and we want our county officials to reflect the values that we have.
It's a misstatement. I have to correct the record.
Okay.
Okay. I've said repeatedly that prosecutors have discretion. I just said that the other night. And the Rosa Parks question I think is fascinating, in that you had recited that, and you make a strong showing of community-based decision-making in prosecutor's office. And then you turn around and say, if you were a prosecutor in the South in 1955, that you wouldn't have followed the community at that time and prosecuted. The question of Rosa Parks was as to the correct separation of government. I've never said a prosecutor has no discretion, but to simply say that the judiciary doesn't have a role in determining the validity of law is an abuse of discretion. And that's what your position has been.
No, and that's not what you said. And again, you point to me and say that I should review the tapes. I think you should as well.
Okay.
That's not what you said.
Okay, maybe we can, this is very interesting, but it's also very uncomfortable. But this is part of the political process, and we should be aware that the overwhelming person who's in office always wants to remain in office. The person who wants to be has to paint a picture that things aren't going well. The person who's in office has to paint a picture that things are going well. And I think we've seen both of those tonight. I think those are understandable. So I want to do a philosophical